Greetings and salutations, and welcome to this special weekend edition of The Game, online at thegamesportshow.com. Scott Nason broadcasting from our studios of WUPN Eagle 95.1, Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, on this snowy Saturday night, November 17th, 2018. We are doing this special edition because, well, we want to get everyone up to date on the weekend, or at least this part of the weekend, in local sports. And, of course, today a big day for the Pickford Panthers as they took part in a state final at the Yooper Dome in Marquette, Michigan, the 8-player Division I final featuring the undefeated Pickford Panthers taking on the undefeated Morrice Orioles. Both teams 12-0 heading into this morning's final, and I made the trek over to Marquette with my son Vance. It was a little bit of a snowy ride, but we got there in time. And first of all, I want to thank the Michigan High School Athletic Association for getting us some great seats in the press box and allowing my son to witness his first state final as far as football. Actually, the first state final in football I have witnessed as a broadcaster or even as a fan. So it was a lot of fun being there, and we had a chance to meet the new director, Mark Ewell. Someone we're very familiar with as far as officials, as he was the voice of the officials meetings, and had a nice chat with him on the elevator. Didn't realize that he has ties to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan via his wife. So great job by the Michigan High School Athletic Association putting on the final in Marquette. And going into this morning's contest, we talked about it last week with Matt Johnson from Pickford. We didn't know too much about this Morrice team. Just going by the stats, we knew that they could score a lot of points. Morrice scored 521 points during the regular season and playoffs up until this morning, while Pickford scored 600. Defense, a little better stats for Morrice. They only gave up 62 points in their 12 games previous to today's final, while Pickford gave up a little bit more, 119. And so we didn't know too much about this Morrice team. There was a common opponent, kind of, as the only team really that they had in common with Pickford was Wyoming Tri-Unity Christian. Now, Tri-Unity Christian didn't play Pickford, but they played a team that Pickford had trouble with in the playoffs, Suttons Bay. The Panthers only beat Suttons Bay by the score of 48-42, a team that lost to Wyoming Tri-Unity Christian. So that was one of the things we knew. And when I got to the stadium this morning, I looked at the roster, and what really jumped off the page at me was the amount of seniors on this Morrice team. We knew Pickford had 2 seniors, and so next year looks good for the Pickford Panthers, obviously, but Morrice, 14 seniors on this roster. And so anytime you have that many seniors and you have a season like Morrice did, you knew that maybe this was going to be a formidable opponent. Well, and we found out they, in fact, were. Let's recap the game. I'll give my perspective on a few of the items. Pickford got the ball first, and, well, they marched down the field, and it looked like it was possibly going to be maybe an easy game. We didn't know that quite so much, but Stephen Lamoth scored a touchdown run for the Pickford Panthers, a 14-yard scamper. The 2-point conversion was good, and Pickford led 8-0 with 9:21 left in the first quarter. And then Morrice, well, they struck right back as quarterback Hunter Nowick had a 42-yard touchdown run. Their 2-point conversion was also good as the Orioles tied Pickford 8-8 with 7:47 left in the first quarter. Now, one of the big moments of the game, I think there were 2 in my opinion, 2 really big moments that caused, well, 3 I should say, but let's talk about the first one. Pickford gets the ball back. They get backed up a bit on a penalty, but before that penalty, Nick Eddington looked like he scored a long touchdown reception. However, the officials called the flag as there was some interference on the play. I happen to agree. I thought the officials did a great job. We'll talk more about that as we go along. Some fans may disagree, but stick with me on that. As the penalty cost Pickford, they move back to a 1st and 25. They do get a first down, but they throw an interception, and so Morrice would get the ball after that. So a touchdown was taken away from the Panthers via penalty, and then a 4-yard quarterback keeper by Morrice's Hunter Nowick. 2-point conversion no good as Morrice took their first lead of the game in the second quarter with 6:08 left in the second, leading at that point by the score of 14-8. And a couple things I noticed from this Morrice team really right off the bat. They have speed. and they run side to side as much as up the middle. Pickford does run side to side, but their game is more running up the middle along with some passing. But Morrice was really impressive early on the defensive side of the ball and getting to the ball carriers, and we'll talk more about that as we recap the game. Pickford couldn't score on their next possession, and then it was another touchdown for the Orioles as Nowak threw his first touchdown pass, a 15-yard touchdown pass to Austin Eddington, who I'm told is a cousin of the Eddingtons in Pickford. And Morrice led at that point by the score of 22-8 as that two-point conversion was good. Pickford drove the ball down the field. Nick Eddington looked like he was going to haul in a touchdown pass, just couldn't hang on to the ball. Morrice would get the ball back and take a knee and go into the half with a 22-8 lead over the Pickford Panthers. And they had the ball first, and you look at the end of the half, that was really the second big point in the game, in my opinion. If Eddington can call that pass in, Pickford goes down one score going into the half. Could have been a different game, but coulda, shoulda, woulda. And Morrice comes out of the halftime break and continues their impressive play as Nowak would score his fourth score of the game, a 5-yard touchdown run, as Morrice led at that point 30-8 halfway through the third quarter. And at that point you thought, boy, Pickford, just maybe it's not their day. They're taking on a very good Morrice team, a very fast Morrice team, and you thought, okay, this one's over. Probably not going to happen as they give the ball right back to Morrice. However, Morrice was stopped. And then Stephen Lamoth goes for a 60-yard touchdown run late in the third quarter for Pickford. 2-point conversion good. And all of a sudden, it's a 2-score game at 30-16. Morrice gets the ball back, and at the start of the fourth quarter, it looked like Pickford had finally stopped Morrice. They had been unable to stop the Orioles at all up until that point. The defense steps up. Morrice gets a bad penalty, and Pickford looked like they were going to get the ball back starting the fourth quarter or just into the fourth quarter with a chance to cut it to 1 score. Morrice attempts the punt. And Pickford got a hand, or maybe it was a backsider. They got a piece of the punt. So this is where maybe the controversy and some people, including myself, I thought that initially the referees got the call wrong. Let's walk you back through it. So Pickford got a block on the punt, and the ball rolls ahead, not quite to the 40-yard line. It was 4th and 8. They were kicking from the 34-yard line. Morrice ends up recovering the ball. Now, the officials, right off the bat, said it was Morrice's ball. Now, there was a lot of question in the press box with some of the announcers, the television announcers as well, stating that, well, Morrice received the ball off the block punt from Pickford, but it wasn't far enough to get the first down. Now, my son Vance, who you'll hear on some Brimley Bay's broadcasts this year on Eagle 95.1, as we'll be broadcasting high school boys and girls basketball, he was right on that call. He said, and the correct call, I believe, should be, once that punt is blocked by Pickford, if Morrice picks up that ball, no matter where they pick it up, it's their ball, it's a first down. Well, that's what the officials called. The Pickford coaching staff had some questions, but I think the officials explained to their satisfaction. I didn't get a chance to talk to the coaches after the game. Obviously, it was a tough game for Pickford, but that was really the backbreaker for the Pickford Panthers. Really tough break, as the Panthers, you thought maybe they had the momentum, and they did, but then it was a 58-yard touchdown run for Morrice as Eddington scored his second touchdown. Austin Eddington, a 56-yard scamper. And then the Orioles would make another score and take their first ever state title by the score of 44-16. Looking at the stats, Hunter Nowak, boy, the senior had a monster game. 39 carries, 217 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. He also passed for a touchdown. Austin Eddington, 122 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. As the Orioles compiled 342 yards rushing, just 36 yards passing. Stephen Lamoth had 109 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Pickford Panthers. Jimmy Story, 15 carries, 98 yards for the Panthers as well. Nick Eddington and Jimmy Story Eddington had 4 receptions for 62 yards. Story, 4 of 17, 62 yards. But this was Morrice's game to win. And they did. Now, here's the good news for the Pickford Panthers. They have a lot of players coming in to next season. As a matter of fact, they only lose 2 players. As I mentioned, Morrice loses 14. So Pickford will be back. And heads up and hats off to the Pickford Panthers. Wonderful season, making their first ever state final. I know it's a tough night for those in Pickford, especially the players and the coaches, but when you wake up tomorrow, you'll know that you had one of the best seasons, as a matter of fact, the best season in school history, and a very good chance to win next year, not only to get back to the Yooper Dome, but to also win at their Yooper Dome. So hats off to the Pickford Panthers on a very, very good, exciting season, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of today's game. Let's look at the other state finals, which happened today, and congratulations to Rapid River. Yes, Rapid River in Division II in 8-player football. They win their first ever state title. They've been in 2 runner-up games, but they beat Onekaba by the score of 30-18. So it shows the strength of the Upper Peninsula and the conference. Rapid River finishes 3rd in the Great Lakes Conference, and they end up winning the D2 final. Looking at the other semifinals in 11-player football in Division I, Clarkson over Saline by the score of 21-3. They'll advance to the finals in Ford Field to take on Clinton Township, Chippewa Valley, as they beat Belleville today 28-16. In Division II, Warren De La Salle, they're no stranger to finals. They shut out Birmingham Groves in the Division II semifinal 28-0. They'll take on Muskegon Mona Shores in the Division II final at Ford Field as they topped Midland 49-28. In Division III, Detroit Martin Luther King over DeWitt 34-21. They advance to take on Muskegon at Ford Field on Saturday as Muskegon over Zeeland East by the score of 45-22. In Division IV, Chelsea, I'm a big Chelsea fan soccer-wise. Well, might as well root for them in Division IV as they beat Williamson in the semifinal by the score of 38-13 as they'll take on Edwardsburg as they knock off Grand Rapids Catholic Central in overtime by the score of 46-44. Grand Rapids Catholic Central, the team that knocked out Escanaba in the regionals. A bit of an upset, in my opinion, on that one. In Division V, Hudson Unity Christian over Saginaw Swan Valley by the score of 14-7. They'll advance to Ford Field in the finals on Saturday, taking on Portland, as Portland defeated Marine City by the score of 35-14. In Division 6, those finals Friday at Ford Field, Montague, not Bill Montague, a former writer for the Sioux Star, but the school Montague, over, I think, the last Northern Michigan team in 11-player, Traverse City St. Francis, by the score of 14-7. They'll take on Jackson Lumen Christi in the final, as they defeated Montrose, no, not Sammy Hagar's former band, but the school, 42-20. In Division 7, New Lothrop advances over Lake City in the semifinal by the score of 51-22. They'll play in the Division 7 final in Ford Field on Saturday, as they will take on Madison Heights Madison, as they defeated Cassopolis by the score of 37-34. And finally, in Division 8, Breckenridge, they shut out Harbor Beach by the score of 12-0. They'll take on Reading, another Premier League team, or I should say, I think they're League One, but we won't worry about that. We'll talk about the Reading football team. They'll take on Breckenridge at Ford Field Friday at 10 a.m. We also had high school volleyball finals today in Division I, Lake Orion over Rockford. In 4 sets, Grand Rapids Christian over Pontiac Notre Dame Prep. That one in 3 sets. In Division III, Bronson over Unionville Seaboing. I always mispronounce that one, but I don't think anybody's listening from there. In 3 sets, and in Division IV, Mendon over Leland. In 3 sets, those were, Leland took out the UP team, Kearney Nadeau, in the semifinals. Let's move on to Lake State Athletics, and, well, a couple basketball teams in action over the weekend. And how about the women's team going down to West Virginia? And they have a pair of victories over the weekend. They win on Thursday at Ohio Valley by the score of 78-48. And earlier this afternoon, they took on Alderson Brodus and defeated that squad by the score of 77-64. So the Lakers off to their best start in women's basketball in several years, and they'll be on the road this week, one game at Indianapolis the day before Thanksgiving on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And the Laker men, they are playing later on tonight in Alaska, their first ever trip up north, and the Laker men got a victory last night as they defeated Alaska Fairbanks, or the artist formerly known as Alaska Fairbanks, and they're taking on Alaska Anchorage later on tonight, and the men will also be at Indianapolis next Wednesday. So both Laker basketball teams off to very good starts in the non-conference season. Well, speaking of a team that's off to a very good start to the weekend at least, the Lake Superior State University Hockey Lakers, as they went on the road last night to Bowling Green after a tough weekend at Taffy Able Arena, just capturing 1 out of a possible 6 points. Well, the Lakers shut out a pretty good Bowling Green team last night by the score of 5-0. Sioux Michigan native Ashton Calder would get the game-winning goal. They only needed 1, while Will Rydell, Lucas Cable, Anthony Nellis, and Colin Sackerman also had goals for the Lakers, as the Lakers are in action as we were recording this game. And if they win tonight over Bowling Green, with Michigan Tech being idle, they will be in first place, if you can believe that. In the WCHA, the Huskies will have a couple games in hand, and they'll be in action at the Taffy Able Arena this upcoming weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, taking on the Northern Michigan Wildcats. Junior hockey, a couple teams in action last night. Not good results for either one. I had a chance to go over to the can't say that anymore, the Memorial Gardens, the Artist, formerly known as the SR Center. And, well, they could have used steel. They could have used a whole lot of things last night. That being the Sioux Greyhounds, as they took on the tough, and I mean tough, Ottawa 67s. And it was the best team in the OHL having their way with the Sioux Greyhounds as they defeat the Hounds by the score of 8-2, as the Hounds now have lost 4 games in a row. They'll be in action tomorrow afternoon against the Windsor Spitfires at 2 at the Gardens. I plan on attending that game. You look at the game on Friday night against Ottawa, the Hounds really played, I thought, a good first 20 minutes. They were down 1-0 after 1, but the bottom literally fell out in the second period as Ottawa would score 5 goals on 6 shots. That's right, 5 goals on 6 shots. And the Hounds really had no answer last night, of course, without the services of starting goaltender Matthew Villalta, still out with that injury, with the linesman accidentally skating over him a couple weeks ago in warm-up. And it was the first action for Mario Peccia for the Sioux Greyhounds, and he was pulled after the third goal. Ethan Taylor comes in, and while the goaltenders didn't play well, and the defense really didn't play well, lots of breakdowns in their own zone, and the Hounds were guilty of pretty much standing around most of that second period and fell by the score of 8-2. And this Ottawa team, I'll tell you, they are built for the playoffs, and if they can add maybe an overage, I don't even know if they need that at this point. Really impressed with Kevin Ball, the 6'5", 6'6" defenseman, second-round pick for the Arizona Coyotes. He was a monster on defense. Just kind of reminds me of a Chris Pronger-like player. And this Ottawa team is going to be tough to beat. With the loss, the Hounds fall to 12-6-3-1. And again, they'll be in action Sunday afternoon at the Gardens against the Windsor Spitfires. And finally, we have a couple more teams to cover. The Sioux Eagles on a road trip. And, well, things didn't go well for the Eagles last night in Kirkland Lake, as the Gold Miners, a very good team this year, at or around first place in the East Division. The Eagles, well, they were blown out by the score of 7-2, as the Eagles received goals from Kyle Quinn and Riley Jensen, but it was all Kirkland Lake in that one. They're in action tonight as we record this broadcast on Saturday night, as they are taking on another good team, Powassan. They'll be at French River on Sunday afternoon. And the Sioux Thunderbirds, they defeated Blind River on Thursday night in overtime by the score of 5-4. They're in action tonight in the River City known as Blind River, and 2-2 after 2 periods of play. So the Beavers playing the Thunderbirds tough. It's a very tough league in the NLJHL, and early on in the first period, Powassan over the Sioux Eagles by the score of 1-0. And the Sioux High Blue Devils started their season this weekend at the Big Bear Arena, splitting their series. We'll have more about that on Tuesday. Our next edition of the game will not be on Monday night due to my son Vance's first middle school basketball game, 7th grade game at 4 at the middle school. So if you have a chance and want to see some great 7th and 8th grade basketball, head to the middle school Monday and Tuesday as they will be playing both those games. As well, I have a Sioux High Blue Devil hockey board meeting that Monday night. First meeting of myself on the board. Looking forward to being part of that organization. So our next broadcast of the game will be a special Tuesday night edition with yours truly and Butch Davis. We'll be doing that show late Tuesday night, probably about 9:30, because the Blue Devils are in action against Sheboygan on Tuesday. So we'll recap the rest of the weekend that was in local sports. We'll also talk about the Lions game at home against Carolina, the Pistons, the Red Wings, all sorts of sports. Dave McKeag, our good friend from Sioux, Ontario, will have a couple versions of his show from Sports Center Bar and Grill and from the Northern Superior Brewery. And you can find all those shows, including Butch on Sports with Butch Davis, my segments with Paul Van Wagner on the Drive on ESPN Blacksburg, in two places, thegamesportshow.com or thegamesportshow.podbean.com. Once again, our big story today, the Pickford Panthers' quest for a state title, first ever, fails, but nothing failed for the Pickford Panthers this season. It was a great season, and they will definitely be back next year. And so thumbs up to the Eastern Upper Peninsula, a lot of community members, not just from Pickford, from the Sioux. Saw some Rudyard folks, some Brimley folks, some Cedarville folks. Nice thing about this time of year in the playoffs, the entire peninsula bands together, including the Eastern Upper Peninsula, which was part of this one. And congratulations to the Rapid River Rockets winning their state title. I'm going to warm up. It's a little chilly, and that'll do it for this special edition of The Game. I want to thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon here on The Game.